Okay, welcome in. This is the Modern Interrogator. Hey, today we're going to go over the Strait of Hormuz. I got running some numbers this morning, and I saw a video put out by Redacted. And look, I get what Redacted's doing. I get it. They're trying to put out the same stuff that everybody else is, and it appears to me to be all a giant scare tactic. And I'm going to go through the numbers and I'm going to show you why. There's other content I did want to make today, but I actually wanted to put this out first because this topic is extremely interesting. So let's dig into the Strait and crunch some numbers. Because what do you think it is? What do you think the numbers show in the Strait of Hormuz? Do you think that it is, oh, there's so much oil that we can't we can't rely on it getting shut down and we're going to be empty in a matter of days because everybody relies on it? That's not true at all. America hardly relies on the Strait of Hormuz. And you say, okay, well, all right, the price per barrel is going to go up though worldwide because it's on a world market. We'll talk about that a little bit later because that's the biggest scam that I've ever seen, and it looks just like a bunch of oil tycoons put together something so you can be scared into paying more when it comes time. Like that's a system we need to fix, right? If I'm to buy an Apple laptop right where I am here, and then I go to Europe and I buy that laptop, is it not a different price? And then I go to New York City, is it not a different price? And I go buy the same thing in China, is it not a different price? So why is oil on this market to where it's the same exact price across the board, regardless of who is getting what from where? It doesn't make any sense. Well, that's just the way we built the markets. Yeah, that's the way the oil tycoons built the freaking markets. So why are we accepting this? We need to fix that because what's the reality of it? 5 to 10% of the U.S. oil only comes from the Strait. And he said, okay, well that's good and all, but everybody else, it's going to affect everybody else. Okay, well let's look at some numbers on. Look at the U.S. sources when it comes to oil. Here, I'll go full screen. Look at this. We create most of our oil up to 75% ourselves, and we get the rest from Canada. And then look, so even when I say 5 to 10%, that's being very generous, because you're going to get all sorts of different numbers, anywhere from 5 to 10 to even less. Like look at this. Look, I had AI generate this image for it. Isn't this interesting? All right, and what are we not told about this? We're like, okay, so how much? Okay, well, that's not a big deal, right? How's it affect the world market? Well, let's look at the numbers for that. I have something more specific for that. Worldwide. Close this out. All right. So let's zoom in on this a tad. Okay. Nope, stop zooming in. Okay. So, oh, no, that's just another breakdown. My bad. I got the wrong one. Okay. So, actually, I might have it here on. Let me go back to full screen. So, I don't actually think I have a graphic for that one. So let me roll into where I pulled it up. So it's funny when you do certain stuff on your phone and it doesn't populate. Okay, so the U.S. is 5 to 10%. Okay, and then globally. So what's it globally? It's anywhere from 20% to less, right? Okay, 20% or less. So then let's crunch the numbers on this real quick. Uh, okay, a month ago, let's just use a month ago for example, right? Because this all started like 3 weeks ago, maybe a little more. So a month ago, the price of oil was $60 a barrel. It's approaching. What's the price of oil today, March 23rd, 2026? So a month ago, it was $60 a barrel. Okay, so 20% of the oil, let's just say 20%, make a good clean number, gets cut off. What's 20% of 60? One second. Let me do the math on this because I can't do it in my head. And I'm not even. I'm bringing all this to you not even as a numbers guy. Okay, so that's $12. Yeah, $12. Let's even make it 14. All right. So then it should only go up to 72%. And then they'll say, well, no, it's the projection of where the market should be, and everybody's scared. I'm like, okay, why do I care if you're scared and you're, oh, well, we can't get oil from there because it just doesn't make any sense. So the most it should go up is by that 20% worldwide to like $72. That's why I'm telling you, this is something bigger. There's something more behind this than just the oil alone. I didn't even get into, maybe we will when we're all done with this conversation. Maybe we'll get into the um the pesticides and all the stuff that comes out of crops for there. I didn't get into those percentages either. Do we not see this? That all right? So the numbers don't add up, and you're doubling. You're pushing 100% on us when it's not 100%. It's 20%, and then they're probably going to try to even exceed 100% on this. Probably 150, 200% if they can. Do we not see this? Do we not see how we are getting screwed for what? Not even to mention that we don't separate the markets from country to country like we do everything else. But for some reason, oil, we can do this with oil? Really? Because I beg to say that some of the countries it screws and some it really helps out. I get that, right? But we doesn't make any sense to me. I don't care if that's how it's always been. That's a broken system. That's a dumb thing to say. Well, it's always been like this. Okay. That's like saying, well, America has always been a Christian nation, so we have to do everything that's Christian based. I mean, I can make the argument that America hasn't been always been a Christian nation, even under its founder. Not that I don't believe certain things that way, but if you really go look at some stuff, some people who they were saying are Christians, that's propaganda pushed by the church. So just because something was done a certain way does not mean that it should be that way. Okay, so today oil is on Brent crude, which I don't even know what Brent crude is. I didn't study this thoroughly. I'm just giving you the numbers of what I see in the little areas of discrepancy that nobody's talking about. It is $100 to $112 a barrel. Well, first of all, why are we getting ranges? I bet I could get a specific one on this. But if I can't ask an AI to pull up a number of how much it is today, that means there are already ranges at other places because it's pulling from multiple places. So that tells me that it's not steady across the globe. We're just told this. I don't know. I'd have to look into that one more before I say that for certainty. But it sure feels like it, man. It sure feels like we're getting screwed here. And for what? I'm not saying I agree or disagree with the war. I think they picked the worst time to go into Iran. We had such good opportunity the entire time we were in Iraq and Afghanistan to go in and do this because they have been a nuisance to us as a nation, trying to do our little bully things as we go other places. And look, as an American, I'm not beyond the realization that we do bully other countries. But think about it this way. How much worse off if we allowed other countries to be the bully would the world look? There's a lot of nuance to that because then we look at a lot of stuff that our leaders are potentially have dabbled into, and we're like, well, I don't know now. Maybe we would be better off. That's a different thing. But as a whole, it's been comfortable for a lot of us, at least in America and westernized countries. But that's all we've known. So they're saying, okay, there's about 12 million barrels, 7 to 12 million barrels that go through the Strait daily. How do we offset this? Well, look, we have a pipeline that goes across Saudi Arabia. It's much like the Alaska pipeline. It's a little bit smaller, a little tiny bit smaller, because it can do 1.5 million barrels a day, right? So we can offset it a little bit by getting Saudi Arabia to do that. Sure, I'm sure Iran would try to target them. But look, if we wanted to put a stop to what's going on there, we could do it. I forgot to switch you over, my bad. If we wanted to see, this is the pipeline. If we wanted to put a stop to what's going on there, we could easily do it. They're not for some reason. And I'm not saying it's always a cakewalk, but there's something weird that's going on. They're like, well, we're going to let Chinese vessels through and other vessels. Like, no. As much as we say, well, that's the way it works because that's what we said. Really? Really? Are we that naive to think? I just don't agree with that. So we got this little pipeline that goes down to UAE is only 500,000 barrels a day, which is, if you could get it down here and somehow get it up here, I mean, but like you don't even need that. You can offset it with 1.5 million barrels a day coming through here. It's going to become another target for sure. But what was the whole point of any of this anyway? You say, oh, well, they're coming in with drones and this. Look, there is a ton about the entire situation that I cannot give you accurate details on because I'm not on the ground. I don't have the active intel. If I'm honest, POTUS can't even, he doesn't, the intel that he's getting it's at least a day old by the time he gets it most of the time, if not older. So he's not even getting, the stuff that happens on the ground is the reality of the situation. I think we're being bamboozled in a lot of different ways. And these numbers just don't add up to me. they really don't add up to me. I mean, we got these pipelines, we got these pipelines, and you ask, well, okay, so these are a bunch of shipping routes, right? And they say Iran said at some point that, hey, well, the the Suez Canal route, we'll get Yemen, the sleeper cells we got in Yemen, to come and attack down there. Like, what is this? Seriously, what is this? We're letting Iran dictate stuff. I'm not even saying this. Like, we shouldn't even be in a fight with Iran right now. According to Joe Kent, who had access to the best intelligence out there, better than the DNI. And she's going to have almost the equivalent. But Joe Kent was in the best spot to get all the intel. I have no reason to think why would he lie? What benefit does he have to come out and lie? And they say, oh well, he's being investigated for. If you're that naive to think that they're not going to come after you, well, first of all, I actually don't even think that Trump dislikes him. If we look at if you look at the way that he talked about when he submitted his resignation and had a conversation with Trump, I think they probably disagreed, but man to man, face to face, this is why people on the internet drive me crazy, because you wouldn't say that to my face. I say I live life by if I can't say it anywhere, I don't say it. I will say on the internet the same thing that I would say to your face. If you're being a pansy, I will call you a pansy to your face. I might use more colorful words, but since we're on the internet and they look for words like that, but you can't live life two-faced. I've tried. I have. You just can't. So I don't think I think there's a lot of intellectual dishonesty in both sides. Well, actually, there's three sides now. You got MAGA, you got the left, and there's multiple sides within the left because you got the extreme left, the old left, and so you got the left, you got MAGA, and then you got all the people who are non-MAGA, and they're all fear mongering, all of them. Actually, except for portions of MAGA, they're like, "Oh, well, this is not a big deal," and I think it's being overblown, but I also think it's being not blown out enough up by the MAGA side. I will give this to Benny Johnson is he put out some decent sources the other day, and I haven't listened to that dude in months because I saw how hard he was simping, and for some reason he popped up yesterday. So I listened to a little bit of what he had to say, and he had actually had some decent points on some stuff. And it actually that's what got my brain swirling, and I was like, well, let me look into some stuff because this seems weird. The entire thing seems weird because we got the counter side fear mongering in the ways that they fear monger. Then we got the warmongers being like, "Oh, everybody calm down." It's really weird. This is why I say it. So now we have three sides. Three sides. You have to step outside all of it. I say this all the time. Step outside every you can't be within a political party and look down the line and get accurate information. You just can't. I have been in that position before, and even with the background that I have, you can't do it from an inside perspective as much as you try to. You can do certain things, but you have to step outside of all of it. And you have to look at everything You have to look at the stuff that like disgusts you that you don't even want to look at. You have to look at all sides. You have to look at all information. And then we use the cliche of saying, well, it's you take this side and it's somewhere in the middle. Well, most of the time, but not always. Not always. Sometimes it's not even anywhere on the map. Like you get the timeline, you get the left and the right, and it's in the middle. No, sometimes it's not even on that time. So these are common shipping routes that they use. But the crazy thing about it is that actually, let me pull up this one. No one ever mentioned me. These pipelines going across Saudi Arabia. It look, it's not gonna help too much, but the numbers don't add up, man. We're already at $100 a barrel when 20% of, and you say, well, the global markets, 20%, which equals $12 a barrel. If we lost all that, it equals $12 a barrel. That means that there's something bigger going on. They're playing some sort of game. Not only are they trying to fearmonger you, they're trying to rip you off. That's why I'm saying don't trust these oil tycoons. They're a bunch of money mongering whores. And the reason why, so you already have states like California who doubled their gas prices. Like California is telling all its citizens, hey, we hate you. We freaking hate you. We hate your guts. And we have the opportunity before we're paying more for the gas already to rip you off ahead of time. So since we hate you, we're going to take your money. Because that's what California does. Let's look at this. How many gallons are floating in the ocean right now? All right, you got 70 to 80 moving. These are how many barrels per day? 70 to 80 per million moving by sea. You got 500 million to a little over a billion just sitting on the ocean. So that means the impact of this could be put off a little bit, but also the impact shouldn't be nearly what it is. And then, like, this is oftentimes when I go to the beach, you'll see tankers sitting out there just waiting to come in and offload. That's very common. The reason why I want to push these numbers is I can't tell you what the purpose is besides the oil tycoons giving you the middle finger worldwide and saying, hey, we control this. I get the percentages, but we control this. So whenever we have a conflict, right, they make these conflicts oftentimes to get richer and get more money. That's what you could, I'm not going to completely boil it down to this, but you could boil a lot of the GWAT down to that. Money laundering. There was one other thing that I looked up, and it was about Venezuela. Remember we went and took Venezuela, right? And then all this talk about their oil. Yes, it's heavy crude, and heavy crude, there's only certain places we can go refine it. Okay, whatever. We'll figure that out or adjust fire and make some facilities that are close to us so we can all take advantage of it. Because how much does Venezuela have there? They have the largest supply just sitting there ready to be taken. But people don't take it a lot because it's more expensive to do heavy crude. But whatever, man. I mean, Look, now's the time to start dipping into that and start. Actually, when it first came about, we should have kept doing it. We should have put it on route to go ahead and do it. So let's look at this with the heavy crude. All right, this is Venezuela's heavy crude. All right, what Venezuelan oil actually looks like. So let's just go through a couple of these. And I truly mean it. When I feel like you're being deceived on every different end that you think you are, because you can start to see it, especially nowadays. Now that you've witnessed them deceive you time and time and time again, it becomes easier to see if you open your eyes to go see it. It doesn't mean that you're going to get the answer to why they're deceiving you. Like, heck no. You'll never get that answer. Just a few little examples of that. So, how much of it? How to give me a percentage of how many barrels? 300 billion barrels. That's a crap ton of oil. 300 billion barrels. How much is floating in the ocean, right? And you got 300 billion barrels in Venezuela. And you got like 1 billion maybe floating around the ocean right now. Just going to throw that out there. Deliberately, when they start deliberately shorting oil, it's going to hit all of us and it's going to hit us hard. And then they're going to give the excuse. That excuse doesn't make any sense. Think about it. We still got a ton of oil. It's decreased from the Alaska pipeline. That's all U.S. based. We got all of Texas. We got the reason why it says we're 70 to 75% oil based. It's because we produce most of our own stuff, and then the rest is done in Canada. And we accept this fact of, well, the global market. Why are we going off a global market for this? Because we don't make everything else like this global. Like my explanation of the laptop earlier, the Mac. So you have a Mac, and it's one price here. It's another price in New York City. It's another price in Europe. And then it's another price in China. It's the same product going over the globe, but it's all different prices. You're like, well, that's the way the oil has to be. Yeah, because the damn tycoons, man. They don't even do that with prescription medications. So we're accepting that with oil. It's because they want to rip you. Oil is they make everything out of oil, even your prescriptions. Yeah, you probably didn't know that. You didn't realize that your modern medicine is oil. That's why none of it ever cures anybody. Because you can't cure something with something that has nothing to do with the body. But when you look at like plants and stuff like that, that comes from the earth, and our bodies are made of the earth. Because look at all the minerals. Like you can't even deny that was science. And then you go into the biblical aspect, whatever. But anyways, you don't realize that everything is oil based. And they're trying to take what should be a $12 increase worldwide because at most it's 20% of the oil getting held up there. That's a $12 increase per barrel. And they're trying to screw you by increasing it double. And they're like, well, the projections of the markets, so we're going to trust the market people now who are ripping you off constantly, who doubled the prices of your houses. So we're going to trust those people. The bankers now we trust. I mean, you got to see through this. You have to see through it and start calling them out. Stop sitting on your ass and doing nothing. I'm not saying go be vigilant, but you have to say something. Look at all the veterans who came out against the VA trying to propose crazy changes. They said something and something positive came out of that. Because when you group together and say, hey, we're not okay with this, that's what they're scared of. That's why they silence certain people from grouping others together to have the voice. Because if enough people get the voice, then they get scared of you. That's why they did what they did to Alex Jones. He was getting too much of a voice. And not only did they get Alex Jones, they flipped him. I mean, think about that one, right? If you go back a couple of years and you look at him and you would think that guy'd never be flipped. There's no way. Seriously, if you get someone good enough at what they do with the human intelligence, like my background, and they know what they're doing, and you get someone good enough, you can flip anybody. You have to get enough leverage, though. You have to get enough leverage. But that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. I'll let you look at this map for a second more. I'm going to look up something real quick. Oh, we can pull up a couple other decent images. Yeah, it's amazing to me how we say, okay, it's okay. It's okay that we just let them do this. And then we allow China ships to go through. And then they say, oh, well, the nuclear war. Well, first of all, when it comes to nuclear stuff, we've been we've been lied to about. I don't know to what extent. It's almost impossible to tell. And you say, well, what do you mean we've been lied to? Well, okay, if we dropped those weapons on Japan, why are there people living and thriving in those cities right now? So then you have to pull on the strings of where else have they been dishonest in this category with us? And it's really hard to tell. It really is. And when you look at the cities and how they appear like other carpet bomb cities, I mean, I'm not saying anything with that. I'm saying it's interesting to look at. I can't prove anything one way or the other. I mean, I'm sure all the people who would have been able to testify about that are gone by now. Don't look into, see, people take the word conspiracy wrong. There's a time and a place for it, but the agency did a number on y'all about that word. Be like, oh, I can't look at any information about that. No, what you have to do when that actually comes about is you have to open your senses more and realize that, okay, well, where's the lie in this and where's the truth? You have to realize that is most information isn't just all truth. There's lies mixed in with the truth. There's always lies mixed in with the truth. So I wanted to do this live because I have other videos I'm editing, and like, you can get really I've been getting behind. I didn't spend any time on my computer this weekend at all. I just kind of wanted to get away from it for a minute. Um, these are some more good pictures of the Strait. I'm not showing them to you right this second. I know that. 'Cause I want to see how much of our crops come through, our agricultural supplies come through there. But secondly, okay, so we don't have pesticides and stuff like that as much. We'll go old school, man. I mean, not only have we screwed ourselves hardcore with that because we cut all the farmers out, so now we have a smaller number of farmers, and for them to be able to produce the amount of food that we need, they have to use the pesticides. Encourage more farmers. Instead, Trump has done the opposite. Trump has cut the farmers off at the knees. The cattle, our local cattle, he's cut out at the knees by the stuff that he's done in South America. Again, it's because they don't care. The reason why they export it to other countries most of the time is because they can in turn somehow get money. It all goes back to the money. It all goes back to, okay, well, how can I get money from this in the future? That's how nasty it all is. It's not, oh, so you could pay less. No, no. You think that they care that much about you? I wish it was like that. That would be nice. I do think there are groups that do want what's best for us, but they're very few and far between. Let's see if I can, like, the how much herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides come through the Strait of Hormuz. It's just easier than trying to type it out and look at you on the camera. Yeah, there's a lot that comes through there. This is why, for years, I've said, like, look, we used to do everything in America, and bring outside stuff in. Now everything's outside, and if we're lucky, we do some of it in America. We need to get back to that. Okay, let's just go full screen with this. Okay, so here are 21,000 tons per year. I don't know what that equates to. We'll ask it, because this is another big thing. Because not only is farming and the food and everything going to get affected by the oil, it's going to get affected by this as well. Okay, where is the 21,000 tons per year in the grand scale of how much the U.S. uses annually? So, okay. And look, these are just general numbers. They're not exact. And we can go dig into the sources. But even not being exact, it doesn't matter, because they're close enough to, when it if it was if the error was a percentage or two, then you could be like, okay, well, maybe we need to dig deeper into it. But if you look at its surface, and it's between from 20% to 100%, like, that's a huge gap, and we already see it happening. So as much as we disdain AI, it all it does is pull stuff a lot quicker, and it can give you more complete sentences quicker. And you do have to double check it. I double check it all the time. But it's pretty good at, and decently honest, at least mine is, at generating decent numbers. It'll still do messed up stuff. That's why you have to double check it. Okay, roughly 1 to 2 billions per year. Okay, so it's not even that much in the herbicide. It's 21,000 pounds. See what I'm telling you? That everyone's saying, "Oh, this is going to be affected." They're fear mongering you, man. 21,000 pounds through the strait. That's it. That's not even a drop. That's not even a percentage. That's not even 1% or above. And holy crap! You remember back in the So I don't remember this, as I was young, but back in I've seen stuff on it. Back in the day, they did this naturally, because there are things that are organic that bugs don't like, that you use to keep bugs off, and so on. And granted, it doesn't always work, but everything became about money instead of health. And what's funny is, you make it about money so you can try to get the doctor the stuff to pay the doctor, so you can be healthier, so you can live longer. But in reality, from where it's starting, it's cutting your lifespan. You have less money, and you can't find anything to make you live longer, like good whole food. And then they sell you everything else on top of it. The irony of all of it, man. I'm telling you what. Because in reality, if you look at it, most hospitals rely on the body healing itself because the body is actually pretty magnificent in that. There's a time for medicines. There is. But what the medicines do is assist the body so the body can repair itself. But since they based everything off petrol, nothing is even close to being cured. In fact, it's quite the opposite. And they don't tell you the numbers that annually on that. I don't want to get into that. There's a lot behind it, and that's not the point of this. Well, maybe it is because we're talking about oil. But don't let this scare you. They want to tell you that what should be 20% of 60 is $12. So it should be $72 a barrel. It shouldn't go up much more beyond that. No, well, market projection. Okay, $75 a barrel. But that's how little of the world's oil is going through the strait. And people will come out and say, "Oh, you don't understand economics, man." I understand basic numbers. Are you that retarded that you can't see past the basic number? And you don't want to look at the fact that the people behind the oil are always looking for a leg up. It's not the local gas station. They're not getting rich off of this. In fact, I actually wish that all these price hikes would actually make them more money, but it doesn't because they're living on the razor thin margin. It drives me crazy, man. It drives me crazy because, and we say, well, this is what an economy based off of straight money and profit is. Maybe that's not the best way to go anymore because we stopped caring about people and we stopped caring about their health and what really matters. Spending time with your loved ones, being healthy, having fun. And we started caring more about money. I don't know. That's all I got on this. I did kind of want to do some of the live stream going into what's this nuts, the the fake interrogator Chase Hughes. Maybe I will, but I got to do that in a different live. So, which I probably should just do it in a live, so then I don't have to edit it. But I pause those things so much because he annoys the crap out of me now. It's really not to pause it like every 5 seconds. Like, really? You're that dumb? Really? Really? Oh, don't forget the micro expression. There's my micro expression. Confusion. Case one. Okay. But anyways, I just wanted to do this, and I might pull some clips out of this and make a short, tiny little video. But the numbers, man, the numbers don't freaking lie. They never have. The numbers don't lie. You're getting taken to the bank so they can put more money in their wallet. Dwight Trump's his net worth has doubled from 3 billion to 6 billion in a year. That's how much we're winning. Doubling some people's bank accounts. Holy crap. You know why Elon got so pissed? Because he realized his bank account wasn't going to double. That's what the fight was about. They're like, man, you're not giving me enough money. You're giving it to all your kids. Why? I don't hate everything that he's done, to be clear, but I sure don't approve of much of it. You feel swindled because you were swindled, but you have to realize that, look, he's not the first one to do it. He's he might be the first one to sell you the world and give you nothing. That I don't know. I'd have to go look at it all. But they're all swindlers. All of them. From everybody in Congress to everybody in the House. They all swindle you day in and day out so they can get rich. It should piss you off, man. People are in there with piss poor backgrounds. Then they put people in there who was covering up stuff like the files since 2012, and they're like, oh, she'd be great at covering the files at the federal level. Let's call her in. If you feel like you're being swindled, it's because you are. If you feel like a few good things have happened, well, a few good things have happened, but just a few, and you've been swindled everywhere else. And if you're simping to either side, you need to take a view from up above on the outside. Quit fear mongering too. Look, it all sucks if we're going to have to pay more for stuff. Yeah, absolutely. It does. But now is not the time to fearmonger. You need to start pushing back and saying, hey, like, this is not cool. You're not going to vote your way out of this. It doesn't matter who they select for the next individual to be in office. It's all it's all going to be crap either way. They've proven this time and time and time again. They've proven it doesn't matter. They've proven that when someone actually goes to do something, like JFK, they end up like that. They've proven that I have an entire I put together the slideshow showing, hey, Charlie Kirk was a terminated asset. And I would know what it looks like. This is what I did for years. Because not only that, you have people calling him an asset who were close with him and calling themselves an asset too. So be cognizant of that. This is why I teach words. Words matter. Words matter. If you misspoke, maybe, once, that's something else, right? But if you continually misspeak like that and your actions continue to push that way, that's not a mistake. You have to push back against the evil, regardless of what it looks like. Even if it looks nice and enticing, you have to push back against it. Charlie Kirk was a terminated asset. He was in the way of doing more with Iran, with Iran. He was in the way of it. And his case officer knew that. So they took care of it. And what happened when he was taken care of? We did exactly the things that would have pushed against him. Because there was no way out of terminating Charlie but that way. There was no way. He had too big of a platform, too many people listened to him. He was too big of a mouthpiece. So these are all professional allegations. I can't prove it. I would need access to certain systems. Yeah, like they're going to give me access to any of that. But in my professional opinion, he was a terminated asset. It lines up perfectly. I've been saying this for months. And I just started this channel a month and a half ago because I'm tired of all the lies. I'm tired of the people who are being somewhat truthful coming out and lying on top of it. And then you just believe everything they say. Look, you got to pick the truth out of everywhere. The truth isn't just in one location, it's not coming from just one person. For me, example, I'm not deliberately lying to you, but I could tell you something that's wrong. I'm not beyond that. No human is beyond being wrong, especially when we have, because we don't have facts on everything. No human does. And you're dumb if you think they do. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to the humans are imperfect. So, should we, I know the thumbnail doesn't say this. I could break out the PowerPoint I have on Charlie Kirk right now, and we could just go over that, and then I can cut it out into a video later. I wasn't planning on this, but now that we're talking about it, how deep am I in? I'm an hour in. I'm not done with the PowerPoint. But if I do this today, I probably won't finish this PowerPoint. Should we do it? Why not? Let's just do it. Screw it. Oops. Hang on. I'm gonna have to take. I'm gonna have to figure this out real quick. But yeah, we're gonna jump into that PowerPoint. How do I? Oh, it's gonna pop up on the main screen regardless. Okay. All right. So I'll move some things around real quick, and we'll jump into it. I wasn't planning on this, so you're gonna have to bear with me because I wanted to be really thorough and do this PowerPoint thoroughly, which is why I'm thinking about maybe not even do it. Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, I can tell you most of it off the top of my head, but I might forget a thing or two. I'll just show you the first slide, and we will. I'll tease you with it and tell you to tune in. Why are you on here? Okay. Okay. So, actually, let's just go through all. Screw it. Let's just do it. All right. I'll bring me into the picture. Hang on. Let me think about this. Okay, if I'm gonna do this, I gotta get a few video clips ready. So you're gonna have to stare at my ugly mug for a minute. All right, hold on. I'll put it in the chat. Okay, we're gonna do this. I wasn't prepared for this at all. But that actually, I've been putting this off for too long anyways. So, oh, yeah. Okay, we can do that. We can do the full. I'll just pull up that YouTube. It might make it easier. Joe Kent was on Tucker. I have those actual locations of those saved. So we're gonna play you the video clips first. Oh, I gotta go to YouTube. Oh, if you didn't listen to Tucker Carlson with the guy that does the Chinese professor, what's his name? Can't remember his name. Professor Jiang with his last name is Xueqin. That dude's pretty stout.
There's one major difference between a talk that gets
All right, let me cue this up. Okay.
do with a nuclear weapon, and the Iranians essentially agreed to that. So the Israelis came in, they moved that red line, and they would do a lot to say, like, oh, they're enriching, and you know what that means? That means in X amount of time, they could have a nuclear bomb. You have to ask now. And then the way the ecosystem would work is that the talking heads on TV, you know, your Mark Levin's, Sean Hannity's, et cetera, they would say basically the exact same thing that night on TV, or there would be a piece written in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, that would say something very, very similar. Yet, if you looked in classified intelligence, we didn't see any of that.
I mean, that must have been such a weird experience for you.
Bizarre.
Since you have access to the biggest and most powerful and presumably the best intel agencies in the world, and you're seeing people say things as fact when you know that they're not facts.
Right.
What was that like?
Infuriating. And I think that's why, in general, in the lead up to this last iteration, a good deal of key decision makers were not allowed to come express their opinion to the president.
Not allowed by whom?
I think it's important for for me right now just to stay on the facts. I don't want to point names. I don't want this to become a name calling or this guy did this on this day.
But any leader has gatekeepers, and so you're saying that you were prevented from bringing this information directly to the president by gatekeepers.
Well, there wasn't a robust debate. So in general, because our assessment really hadn't changed, we would send those up through intelligence channels. Everybody's kind of reading the same intelligence, but then what actually gets briefed to the president can be very, very different depending on who and how it's delivered. And without a level set from the intelligence community, someone like D&I Gabbard coming in and saying, Mr. President, like, here's the full scope of the intelligence, and what it means, you're kind of lacking that sanity check of where we're at, or at least a good sampling, to gauge how accurate what the Israelis are saying is. And that process, in my view, was largely stifled in the second iteration. There was robust debate and robust discussions leading up to the 12-day war into Midnight Hammer. But the second round, to me, and I'm sure others will refute this and disagree with me, but what was conducted by just a handful of small of advisors around the president.
That is true. I believe what you're saying is true. My sense, though, and you would know more than I, is there weren't a lot of people directly around the president who work there, who work at the White House, the principals, who are making an aggressive case for this war. Do you think was there a majority of like his top 10 advisors who were saying we must do this now?
I think the circle that was around him was very, very tight and very small, and I think they were all on the same sheet of music. And I think a lot of them were getting their information from the ecosystem that I described. And I think we'd be in a different place if we would have talked about what the intelligence picture is and what our interest is.
So Israeli government talking points laundered through Fox News and the Wall Street Journal, is that the ecosystem you're talking about?
Yeah, and then the Israeli officials coming in and basically either ahead of time or after the fact saying the same thing, like the enrichment is going to get them a nuclear bomb in a set amount of time.
Do you believe that you and the DNI, for whom you worked until yesterday, had as much FaceTime with the president as Israeli officials did?
I don't know. I don't know that for sure because I don't know exactly how frequently the Israelis were engaging directly with the president. It did seem like Benjamin Netanyahu was, obviously that was all public, that he was in the White
7
House.
times.
Quite a bit, yeah, quite a bit. And then his other officials as well, Dermer, et cetera, those guys were in, they were making phone calls, just a lot of engagement from them. And again, when we would hear, or you'd hear what they were saying, it didn't reflect in intelligence channels, even intelligence that we shared with the Israelis, that the Israelis were giving us in many cases. So there was a clear, gap between, the intelligence and then the information that the president was given and the decisions that the president was making.
I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position. Obviously, you're not going to divulge anything that's classified. I don't think you would. You definitely shouldn't, because there are people who hurt you for that, and you shouldn't. So without encouraging you to do that, I think it's a commonplace. It's understood in Washington. I've heard from many people who work in your business that a substantial portion of our information touches Israel at some point. Either it's collected by them, it is shaped by them. It's not purely American. Do you think it's fair?
Especially in the Middle East, I would say. Look, the Israelis are tactically very proficient.
Yes.
They have a very competent intelligence service. And there's a lot that we can learn from them in the craft of intelligence.
Yes.
So they're very proficient. They're very good. However, whenever we get information from a liaison service, I think it's incredibly important to realize that it could be given to us to influence us as well as to inform us. And the way that I would see Israeli information, in particular coming from senior officials directly to our senior officials, that caveat just wasn't given frequently enough. And there's a lot of times, some of this is just because of bureaucratic practice, but a lot of it I think is just we feel very comfortable with the Israelis. A lot of them are dual citizens. They sound like us. They don't feel foreign. We kind of go into a more complacent mode where we trust a lot of what they have to say, not keeping in the back of our mind that they have their own agenda and we have our own agenda at the end of the day. Now, I'd say a lot of times we have the same agenda. It's very, very, I think, tactically the same when it comes to fighting Hezbollah, when it comes to fighting terrorism, sure. But when it comes to what's our strategic goal in a war that's going to have ramifications for our nation, for the region, for global energy supplies, I think most folks right now at the Pentagon and the intelligence agencies, they would say us and the Israelis actually have a different objective here. I don't believe that our objective has been clearly defined because we're shying away from regime change. The Israelis are not shying away from regime change. They want to knock out lock, stock, and barrel the current government. They don't seem to have a plan for what comes next.
Well, that was my next question. I think you would have heard tell of such a plan. So if you're going to take out government, I think it's fair to ask what replaces it. And
Trump feels.
Let's move to the next.
This game, you're not ready for it.
Like he is under threat. We're not allowed to ask, basically, was there any linkage between what took place with Asif Merchant, who was recruited by the Iranians to come to America to recruit proxies to kill President Trump. The FBI put a confidential human source at him. All this is public now. This is all out there in the open. And he's arrested, and then 2 days later, a sniper takes a shot at President Trump. We think Merchant and we know the CHS was talking about the human source that the FBI put at Merchant. They were talking about, hey, we could kill the president potentially with a sniper rifle. But then they arrest him. 2 days later, Butler happens. And Crooks, according to the official narrative anyways, is an enigma. We don't know anything about him. We can't get into his devices. If we did get into his devices, maybe there's nothing there. No more questions are allowed to be asked about Thomas Crooks. The DHS IG is currently being blocked from investigating Butler as well. That's out in the media. That's all well known. Your investigative journalist found that Crooks did indeed have an online persona,
quite an
online
extensive
footprint,
one.
and he was talking
Yeah.
to people. So
Yeah.
it's like, why aren't we investigating this? You know, I mean, if
An attempted murder of a presidential
attempted
candidate?
murder of a presidential candidate, and then there's another assassination attempt. There's been multiple public breaches of President Trump's security over the last year. And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way, and we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway, and I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space, and he said, Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran, very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran, and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
I don't think you are.
because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran. And we knew at the end of the 12-day war, at the end of Midnight Hammer, that the Israelis were going to come back and ask us to go back to war again.
Right.
So we have a lot of data points between Butler, the assassination attempts against President Trump, the breaches of his security, what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Can I just ask you to pause on the Charlie Kirk because it upsets me to hear what you're saying, to be reminded that he was murdered, but also to hear you confirm what was reported in the media several months ago, that your office had been blocked from investigating his murder. That does not make sense to me. I don't understand why you would ever turn down help in an investigation from a U.S. agency with a lot of experience in gathering intelligence on things. That's your job.
The FBI will say, and the DOJ will say, that because it's an ongoing case, it's a Utah state case, that back off, they've got it. They've got a smoking case. They've got the fingerprints on the gun, and they've got the kit.
But the FBI was involved in the case.
The FBI was involved. The FBI's basically said that they're deferring to Utah because it's now a state case.
They've established a precedent for federal investigation of this crime.
Yeah, and the National Counterterrorism Center's mandate is to investigate any foreign ties, to see if there's potentially any foreign ties. If we don't find any foreign ties, we back off. What I'm saying, without getting into too much detail, is there was more for us to investigate.
You believe there was reason to investigate foreign ties to Charlie Kirk's murder, and were told by the FBI, DOJ?
FBI and DOJ, yeah.
No, you're not allowed to investigate that.
Stop. It's done. They basically cut off our access to be able to get into that information. And look, I didn't even say necessarily that I believe there's 100% foreign ties. There were data points that we needed to investigate. I mean, I think anybody who's even looked at any kind of police investigation, you get 100 leads, you run them down, and 99 don't mean anything. We still had a lot more leads to run down that pertained to some kind of a foreign nexus that we were stopped from investigating. And
that just strikes me as inconceivable that could happen. And again, I was aware of it from reading about it, but not really to the extent that you've just described. So I would love to hear the justification for that. And can you flesh that out a little bit more? What were you told was the reason to prevent you, as a federal intelligence official running the National Counterterrorism Center, from looking into the murder when you had reason to look into it?
Well, the way the bureaucracy works is they can just kill things in process. So initially we were cut off pretty early on from being able to access like the files and being able to send people out there. We sent people out initially to work in the task force. After the crisis period, the first week or so, that dispersed, and we basically were told that, hey, we'll get back to you if we find any kind of foreign ties, et cetera, that we want you guys to look into. Meanwhile, we had already dug up a decent amount of leads. Again, I'm not saying that we had anything concrete, but we found more work that we needed to do to say that we had done our due diligence. We were then told that, hey, you guys need to stop. You can't work on this anymore. I had a bureaucratic dispute about it. Eventually, we were allowed to continue to investigate. But then in very short order, all the requests that we would make that normally different parts of the interagency with the FBI being on point would facilitate data share. Data sharing is a big thing that NCTC does. Those requests were just never met, or in my opinion, not an honest effort was given to fulfill those requests. Just basic information that any competent police service, which I believe Utah has, and the FBI, that they would have access to help us run down the leads to either confirm or deny some kind of foreign activity. So we were cut off from that. They didn't ever officially come back and say, you can't look at this anymore. All of the requests just continued to die on the vine with the various agencies that we needed to actually fulfill those requests.
I just can't imagine a legitimate justification for that. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but from a non-specialist perspective, something horrible has happened. The U.S. government, its core function is to investigate crime, particularly murder.
It's what the internet does. I'm not worried about people's opinion of me. If you train with me and you have that opinion, then I want to talk to you. I want to navigate, like, did I do something wrong? Can I be better?
Agreed. Yeah, for me, more than anything, it's just heartbreaking to see that, the breakdown of trust and reputation, and the way that the special operations community as a whole, entity-wise, I think has been jaded and
actions on in exfil. To flawlessly infill, for people to operate like that in their own little world without help, and you can take the Trump assassination, the further away we get from it, every day that we get away from it, the high-level CIA.
Hey, wait, I need you to show me how to convert a Word doc to a PDF.
High-level CIA official.
Hey, wait, I need you to show me how to convert a Word doc to a PDF again.
Seriously,
I could say this, and I could say this. The day after, I talked to a high-level CIA official, very high, and he told me, I don't even know if I should say this.
I think you should absolutely say it.
He told me that the FBI is not cooperating with him, and he is trying to corroborate potential foreign influence, and was getting blocked out of every opportunity to confirm or deny that. And it was written off as no foreign influence less than 48 hours in. And this guy has access to the President of the United States. And so for that to be said from the guy and asking me if I had anybody that I knew on the inside to be able to get information because he wasn't allowed to access it, I'm like, why are you calling me? Tells me everything that I need to know.
Well, so to me, here's where I don't understand that, is that you have, Trump's hand-picked guy running the FBI, right? And so if this guy has access to Trump also, isn't that at odds? Like, why would the FBI being, headed by Trump's hand-picked guy not be cooperating with somebody who also has access to Trump? Like, where is the conflict?
That's the first question I asked, and what I got was,
Gotta be fine. Says the guy. Says the guy on the other side of the fucking interview.
What I was told was the guy's already bought. And
which guy's already bought?
The FBI.
By somebody outside of the president?
Don't know who that is, but basically he's already been so heavily influenced by outsiders that it's a very good question that you would have a hand-picked cabinet member from the DOJ, the head of the FBI, and then a hand-picked cabinet member for an intelligence organization not being able to interoperate together. Why would you block them out? Well, one, if you were trying to compete with them and you want to be the person that was positioning your organization to be above the rest, like, why would we need the CIA? Because the FBI runs the show. This is a domestic terrorist threat. But have you confirmed or denied that there's any foreign influence? Yeah, we did that. How can you do that in 48 hours? You can't do that, is the answer, in 48 hours. So it's either external influence or a combination of that and protecting your organization because you are the show. And on game day, as it was advertised, again, in post press conferences, they did everything right. Or did they? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is when the CIA is getting blocked out of even investigating foreign influence days after it happened without a proper investigation or without even cooperation with a proper investigation, That is a massive problem.
Agreed. And I guess, if I'm in your shoes and I'm speaking with this higher up CIA guy that's telling me this, but who also has access to the president, the way my mind immediately, or where my mind immediately goes, is why wouldn't you tell the president then that that's taking place? And maybe he has, but if he has, and the president isn't either A, doing something about it, or making coordination happen, to me, you can deductively reason then that would imply that the president has a part in it too, no? I mean, or am I missing something?
Well, I think what I've gotten so far, and this has been a culmination of Tulsi Gabbard and many other people, including Sarah Adams and Khalid, these intel experts that focus on understanding what's going to happen in like 9/11 2.0, right? I do a show every Wednesday, a live show with Survival Dispatch, and we talk about the prospect of there being a 2.0.
Yeah, Kanye sent this now infamous tweet. I love the way Candace Owens thinks. I believe, and I'm saying this retrospectively, that from that moment onward, Charlie and I were assigned handlers. Okay, this is an expression that Kanye used to say, have a handler. I thought that he was just saying that. I thought that he was referring to just Hollywood. I now very much believe that I have had handlers since 2018, and that things were done intentionally to pull me and Charlie apart.
What Candace Owens does.
Okay. So you can't figure out foreign influence in 24 hours. I don't know. They're determining whether to continue with the war in 48 hours. Do we have, what does this slide represent to you? It's an honest question. You think there was somebody in the way of Iran? I do. High-level asset was in the way of Iran. Let's see if we can't go to the next one. Oh, crap. One second while it crashed. Okay, let's go to this one. Okay. So I wanted to put in here, why do I believe that he was an asset? I mean, why do all signs to me point to that? Let's look at this. So we're just going to start from 2017, right? We just heard what a certain somebody said, that she feels like she's had a case officer since 2018. So TPUSA, these numbers aren't exact, but they're pretty close. TPUSA is orange and the Daily Wire is blue. So I want you to realize that both these organizations, they're peddling the same thing, just in the name of a different God. One's in the name of Christ and one's in the name of whoever modern day Jewish people think as their god. Maybe like Baal or something. I don't know. Not all. I'm just saying a certain sect of Judaism. You call me harsh on that or whatever you want. I don't really care. It's quite evident because you hate everybody besides Jews. When you hate everybody besides your own belief, that is an issue. And that means that you're peddling evil. So, and I didn't mean to say the J word. But anyways, these are all my professional opinion of doing this at a high level for many years. So let's look at the money, right? Money tells you a lot. Money can speak to you. So we can see, and not only the money, but the donors behind the money, right? So again, donors behind the money, all this money you see on the screen here, all this like $1 billion you see here, largely comes from people who have origins to the New Jersey of the Middle East. This is why I wanted to put this up here, because the Daily Wire, in my opinion, is they're more blatantly nasty, but they're just as bad as T-Pusa. I don't want to say it. So it's T-Pusa. But look at when they started to get pumped full of a lot of money. I believe I've seen some numbers where in 2018 this was higher. I don't know exactly. But they started to get pumped full of money. So much money. Look, go into the COVID era, and then they just started. I want to say there's more than this, but this is only TPUSA. It's not any other shell. They have a ton of shell organizations, and I don't know where they figured that out or whatever. But if you add up, I don't know when all their shells were created, which would actually be a decent thing to dig into and compare those two. But that's a lot of donor money going into those areas. So the whole thing of I had a case officer in 2018 and beyond, absolutely. But who worked at both of these organizations? Before now, she's come out and she claims absolute credibility amongst all Americans. Granted, I don't like the attacks against her. I think those are also phony and made up. But she has also come out and said not only she has, I'll just use the term she uses. I don't like to use it. I like to use case officer because that's officially what it would be. But she's had a hammer since 2018 coming out of her mouth. It's also saying that she feels that Charlie did too. Not only does the money, not only do actions show me, and we'll go through the actions later on, the money shows us that. And she has worked for both these organizations. Not only that, you dig further into her history, she has a I'm blowing with the wind type of personality, so wherever the money is, and so on. And that's what she's doing currently, presently. Is she's blowing with where the money is, and you are giving her eyeballs. And I will never say that she's putting out a lot of fake false information, because she's not. She's putting out truth, but then there's lies within the truth. And you can't see through them because you think that everything she's giving you is honest. Which you have to decipher what's true and what's not true. Because she's been doing this game for a long time, so I would call her on a level of professional liar. I would put her at that level. Because you do it long enough in enough media, you become proficient to a professional level. you learn how you have to provide a good 90% truth to cover your 10% of lies. And sometimes, depending on how big the lie is, you have to do 99% truth with 1% lie. And you can only have one singular lie because it's so big. It's how we do it. It's how I was trained to do it. It's how every other intel. It's how we even train our own assets. This is why I say Charlie was a terminated asset. He got this big through the donors over the years. And there's a reason why, again, these are all allegations. These are all my professional opinion through what I've done for the years. This is why we will never see Ben. You know which Ben I'm talking about. We will never see him go the different direction. Because, well, first, he could probably be terminated once his business dies, because it's dying. But right now, we would never see him do that, because they would have to terminate him the same way. 110%. He would be terminated the same exact, well, not the same way, but he would be taken care of, if you catch my drift. That's how the New Jersey of the Middle East rolls. And you talk to enough people about it. And the reason why I don't think this is American-based, I think a large portion of the cover-up was bureau-based, as from what we just saw, no other agency could investigate foreign influence because the bureau, the dude who's bought and paid for, is covering it up and wouldn't allow those foreign investigations to take place because of that. Do you see what I'm saying? Because then we would be able to tie it to the New Jersey of the Middle East. I'm not even saying their leader had knowledge of it before it happened. It could have been after. But the dude totally knew. And then he comes out the day after being like, we did do this, I swear. What? It all perfectly aligns. Perfectly. And just so you know, it's not just CEO and Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk who have case officers or him. There's many within inside these organizations that do. Ben Shapiro, a few people that work underneath them. Because they're not just going to have one person in there, they're going to have multiple so they can report back. Because these are big organizations that got pumped full of New Jersey of the Middle East money, which is your tax dollars, by the way. Sure, it comes from there, and from their initial donation, but it all is funneled from you paying taxes through a giant system that ends up in coming back to these organizations. It's your tax money. It would be actually extremely difficult to even prove that. Because you build enough shells, it's just, there's a point of no return that you can tie it to anything. That's how it works. It doesn't matter if it connects or not. There's a point of no return that our legal system wouldn't accept it anyway. There's a reason why they stopped where they stopped with USAID. They sold enough of that so they could reposition USAID because they wanted to hurt the agency in a way, which I get, because there are certain factions of the agency which are rogue, There's a certain percentage, and there always has been, but it's go look at John Kiriakou. He says 20 to 30%. I don't know if it's that high. I wouldn't argue among those numbers. And then the rest of the agency, it's just normal everyday people trying to do, they do stuff like I did, or normal analysts, all that stuff. That's what most of the agencies are built on, is everyday people who want to do the right thing, who want to go investigate for foreign ties and influence and all that. And then the ones who rise through are the ones who play the political games in the right direction for who they hold. It's quite interesting. If you dig into all of it, it's way too much to dig into in a short period. Okay, so this overall, let's take this. So Candace Owens leaves TPUSA about this time frame, 2019. She goes for 20 to 21 for that year and a half period. There's a year and a half where she's kind of independent, and she started her YouTube in 2016, 2017, and then it, slowly went, but she was out with TPUSA a lot. And then she built more of her YouTube up here in the 2021 era. And then she got her Daily Wire high. And, she built her brand more and then moved on from there with Where the Wind Blew and onto the outside. So they had to make it a big show and a big firing for it to look authentic. Just like there was a big show with all of that. So what I've gone through before in previous videos is if you look at the timeline of, I have that somewhere. I might be able to find you this timeline. Hold on. You gotta go full screen. I don't like showing you everything online, because I don't remember what I say about my desktop sometimes. I mean, nothing like that. Just maybe some like personal stuff. Oh crap! I don't know if I can find it right now. Oh, it was a good timeline. Let me check one more place. This is why I wanted to be prepared, because I would have been able to find this and drag it all to you. Maybe this is it. No, that's just. Okay. Well, anyways. So real quick. All right. So 2017. Oh man, I was looking for it and I lost my train of thought. Crap. Okay. Well, whatever. It's real life. That's what happened. So that's what I'm saying with everything with her is just be cautious of it. She's also come out and said that. She's also come out and called herself a Mason. And yeah, many people go and be like, oh, look at these pictures. Look at those pictures. Okay, whatever. I mean, if, okay, maybe one or two pictures there's only so many hand gestures you can do in life. But to purposely pose for some of them is kind of weird. It really is odd for like a picture. And then not only that, that picture has to be uploaded to the internet. It's not like it's not automatically put on the internet. That has to be purposefully uploaded. So I don't have pictures that I take automatically uploaded. So it has to purposefully be put out. So there's that. But she's also said those exact words, which I could pull up, but I don't need to pull up. Just go check out some of the previous videos on it, right? So the reason why it feels like an act or like a theater play is because in large part it is, and it always has been. It always has been. Okay, so with the timeline though that I was talking to you about is it was 2017, I believe, that she got married to Charlie met Erica Kirk. I want to say 2017. It's either 2017 or 2018. I can't recall exactly off the top of my head. In late, like September of 2017, Charlie met Erica. And then late in December of 2018, after Erica and Charlie were dating for a while, she goes and meets George, what's his face, and they end up getting engaged 12 days later. I can't make it up. It was 12 or 18. Well, I don't care. Whatever, 12 or 18. Not a big difference. It's not a difference of significance. So she goes and does that. And not only that, George Farmer his father has a very sketchy background. There's a dude that's on X that did a really good background dive into George Farmer's father and how he got his money. Very sketchy. And I think it goes around Oil Tycoons. Kind of what we're talking about today. I can't remember if it was oil or something else. But whatever, it doesn't matter. It was shady either way. And from there, George has equally as unknown and shady of a background. Well, maybe not as much as his father because he hasn't lived as long. But so anyway, she gets engaged to him within a couple months of Charlie meeting Erica. And the whole Erica thing, with Erica, we didn't even dive into the fact that her facial structure has noticeably changed from the time that we have photos of her with Charlie from 2017 to 2024, 25. Her facial structure has different features on it. So what we're seeing today is we're seeing her at different events, and sometimes she looks way different. It's crazy to look at and think about, but there's certain facial features you cannot change. Yes, you can blame some camera angles for some of the stuff. I wouldn't completely vote against that. However, even AI comes out and says, yes, her facial structure shifts completely. It's not like I'm making this up out of nowhere. I'm not even the first one to bring this up. So out of all of that, the weird thing is that Candace has never brought any of that up. I want also to point out to you, so I'm not hardcore crazy against Candace like everybody is. I'm telling you is be suspect of the information that she puts out because it seems to be part of the play. It seems like their argument is organic. She never released anything about their meeting, just a verbal diarrhea from her mouth of what happened at the meeting. Like, that doesn't mean crap to me because you don't have a trustworthy background anyways. You didn't release a picture, recording a video, or like, hey, this was them when they were here. you don't really see anything like that. So like we can't even prove that that actually took place and so on. So that on top of it is kind of weird. When we add everything up that has been found towards the Charlie Kirk investigation, there has been minimal stuff that she has actually dug up of importance. Everything else has come from Baron Coleman, Coach Collins, everybody else around her. You see what I'm saying? And I've said this before, watch her. She will break to ads in the most odd times for the cash of it all. Like it's really, really weird. Like right when and the fact that she's playing ads during the first show after Charlie happened, like that was all weird too. There's so much odd things behind all of it. And then you dig into the Catholicism conversion, and that is super weird too, because it's a Masonic sect of the Catholic Church. And there's a huge history on the Catholic Church that's really weird and unknown about. And it's largely Masonic based. That's why they don't worship Christ. That's why they worship Mary and all sorts of weird stuff. And they started the modern version of Islam. There's all this evidence out there to show you. I'll link a video that explains some of it decently. And I just have to remember to link that video. When I clip this out, I will link that video. It's called something like, let me look it up. Okay, here. Type in the Roman Catholic Church created Islam, or the Islamic connection. The Islamic connection, Catholic and Muslims. And then it's this guy. So it's like it's a blue background, or purplish blue background like that. It's really interesting. And that guy's been around for a long time. I've seen that guy. He's like an old evangelical. That video is from the 90s. That's how long it's been around. That's why I've seen it a few times. That's the most recent one that I've seen of it. But that's the connection between them. He lays out a lot of the stuff on how they created Islam to fight the Christians, because the Christians were making the Catholics look horrible because of what they were saying about Christ and him coming back, and then the Catholics worshiping Mary and so on. So they created the modern Islam with Muhammad, and to fight the Christians and try to kill them all. Seems crazy, but what do we know? There's so much about the Crusades that we don't know that's hidden. And I'm sure it's more complex than that. I'm sure it is. So with all that said, the way that she gets engaged immediately right after that is just weird. On top of everything, the way that she has left every organization has been extremely weird, but she always just blows with the wind. Whenever people rebel against her, like, look at this. If every follower of hers now turned against her and called her like, hey, you're lying, you're this, you're that, her followers, or the majority of people, regardless of which direction it is, did that, like they did with Social Autopsy, she would shift with it. Like, yeah, you're right, and blah, blah, blah. Even if she didn't believe it, she would shift with it like she always does. She's a shapeshifter, whatever you want to consider that to be. But she would shift with it. She would blow with the wind. That's why I'm saying she has some good info that she puts out. So take that info, stow it away, but then you have to throw out the crap information. And what was crap information? It was the stuff on Machuca with Mitch. Mitch, that was a complete setup. And I've gone through that in previous videos, where it's the form that is used with the executive summary is not a modern military police form that they would use. It would not be in an executive summary. But it's either Mitch made that up and gave it to her, or she made it up. I think more Mitch, because that is an older police form that wouldn't have been used in the last 10 or 15 years. But Mitch is an old veteran, so he doesn't realize that the stuff changed and it's going to change again in 10 years from now. And on top of all that, everything that he said, it just didn't make sense. It didn't jive. Not that he wasn't at Fort Huachuca. I'm not even disputing that. I'm just saying what he saw didn't. I'm not even saying that there's not a connection with Erica Kirk and Fort Huachuca and all that. I'm just saying these extreme connections of this is what happened there and all that. It wouldn't happen at Huachuca, though. As someone who understands intel, we wouldn't plan and do a mission like that out of Huachuca. Why would we do it out of the place that we train people at? That's all Huachuca is used for, is training. We wouldn't hold one of the most controversial assassination meetings out of Fort Huachuca. But I also, when I look at everything, I don't think there is any sign of a U.S. agency being involved in it. It could be an after the fact of CYOA that was going on. I don't think it was an actual agency that pulled it off. It just doesn't make sense. The agency, even unless it was rogue, unless they were rogue agents, the agency doesn't do this. It doesn't matter how bad it is. The agency doesn't terminate like that. Not on American soil to an American citizen. It wouldn't matter how bad it is. Unless it was a rogue agent, which is very possible. I'm not saying that's not in the realm of possibility. I mean, heck, we got, in my opinion, we have a rogue leader of the Bureau. We even had one who resigned. And he still won't even admit that he protected PETA. So I just want you to know, when it comes to those two individuals, they have no background in any of it. So as well, Dan What's-His-Nuts says, I was Secret Service. Okay, so you were involved in standing around pulling security for somebody. Big freaking whoop. And some of them do actually get some really good training. But for the most part, I mean, I don't know. With what he was doing now, he was probably one of the ones who didn't really do much. Otherwise, why wouldn't he be doing other stuff? I don't know. I mean, I could see it going multiple different ways. But then Cash has no experience in any of it. And then I saw Dan talking about assets the other day, saying something about assets, he wouldn't know the first thing about that. Many people think that they know stuff because they've seen people like me at work doing stuff, and then they've seen the movies, and they think they understand it and know how to do it. Like, it's totally a different game though. I'm not saying it's complicated. It's actually relatively easy. But there are certain processes and steps you have to do specific ways to do it in such a manner. Which is why I don't think that he was an asset for an American force. It just doesn't make sense. It makes way more sense that it was foreign controlled. We see a lot of foreign ties because agencies wouldn't do this, not to a citizen. I promise you they wouldn't do it to a citizen unless it was a rogue agent. That's completely different. As much as we don't trust the Bureau, the agency, or any other agency out there, as much as we don't trust them, because I'm not saying I do much either, they wouldn't do that blatantly to a citizen. They just wouldn't, because that would, if that ever was found out, heads would roll. But I don't know. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit, because maybe JFK was the first time that they did it. I'm not willing to say with absolute certainty, because I know what's happened in the past. But I have a strong feeling that it was straight to New Jersey of the Middle East because of how everything lines up. And also, I don't know, who knows? Who knows? But that's my professional assessment on that. And then you look at, all right, everything starts to get spicy. Let's go to like 2025. Or no, the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. Everything starts to get spicy. All right, so the election happens. Different things are said. Then we move into 2025. And everybody at TPUSA celebrates. Like, oh, we did it. We got him elected again, and so on. And I don't know why that's not being investigated. Because there is more than enough evidence to close down TPUSA for tampering into elections. Absolutely, man. And even with the Daily Wire. So many of these organizations, because they're tax-free, they're tax-exempt, so they could be shut down for those reasons. But they won't be. And even when the other party gets involved, they won't do it. Because they all have this. Again, this is why I don't like politics, because 100% of it is dirty. And that's why you have to step outside of it. It doesn't matter what side you are on, in the middle, whatever. You have to step outside of all of it, because it's all garbage. So we get into 2025, and then this stuff with Iran happens, where they end up destroying the nuclear sites at Iran. And then that sets Charlie off. He's already starting to look at the stuff that's happening just north of New Jersey of the Middle East, and he's starting to change his tune on it. And you can see it. You can see it, and people are going crazy over it, like both ways. Like, oh yeah, he's totally this way and totally that way. But he starts to change his tune. Which I think they've already tried to scrub the internet with some of that stuff. Because they don't want to see that out there. I'm sure they scrubbed his actual Charlie's web YouTube channel. So he starts to be like, okay, maybe I'm a little off on this. Like, this doesn't seem right. The way that they're doing things is blatantly unaliving people. And for what? For what's the purpose behind it? Oh, maybe he realized that most leaders there don't have the genealogy to tie him back to the normal genes of the Jays. You know what I mean? Their genetics aren't matching. Because that's a thing. I think some of them have like Polish genetics and other genetics in that area. So he starts kind of clapping against that, and then the Iran stuff comes up. We go bomb Iran and their nuclear sites. And that's an issue at the time. And then he goes and talks to Dumpty Dumpty, and he convinces him, like, hey, don't do it anymore. And he starts to become pretty vocal about, we don't need to go into Iran. It doesn't need to be another G-Wall, and so on. So he's starting to get in the way. And the New Jersey of the Middle East is starting to see this. They're starting to see, he's talking on he's talking about all this stuff we're doing up just north of us, all the way we're destroying everything and everybody. Doesn't matter who it is. I got to be careful how I say these things. And he's changing his tune on that. Now he's convinced Humpty Dumpty not to do anything more with Iran. Like, what in the crap? So his case officer has seen these changes, well before they're public. And they start to see he's an uncontrollable source. We can't control this asset anymore. We can try a few things, and we can get some of the really big name donors that we send his way. We can get them to call him and threaten to cut off the many, many millions of dollars they give him. But this is kind of the end point. And if this doesn't work, we're going to have to terminate him. And Charlie has such a big platform that just cutting ties with him like a normal everyday source doesn't work, because he can talk about everything he's done and how he knows a lot more behind some of it than most people think. So just weeks before September 10th, Charlie starts getting these phone calls. And he starts telling people around him, hey, I'm kind of scared, man. Like, I got a bad feeling something's going to happen. Well, I mean, because it wouldn't be hard to tell from those phone calls, be like, hey, you're going to lose a lot more money in this, man. You're going to lose a lot more than my donation in this. Like, you need to come to the table and start doing what we're telling you to do. You need to stop going against us, or you're going to lose a lot more money. And then the day before, he got a really bad phone call, and supposedly he was freaking out about that one. And they already had everything planned out well before that last phone call, because it's easier to plan it out and then call it off at the last minute than it is to try to plan something at the last minute. That's usually how the missions go that we do, is we will plan the whole thing out, work on its execution, and then if we have to pull it to the last second, we'll pull it out the last second and then either reset and do it again, or just go to another mission, because we didn't need to execute it. The mission, we didn't need to execute the mission, is what I mean. So it turns out he still wasn't changing his tune. In fact, he was going harder than ever. And there's the desire of Iran, the desire to topple Iran. Like, look at this. We didn't even go into Venezuela until he was gone. Because the whole Venezuela and Iran thing are connected. There's something that I heard about it the other day on how they're connected, but it actually makes sense. I don't remember off the top of my head why it's connected. So, but anyways, he's stopping this from happening in this picture. All right. And I'm not even saying them. I didn't put, the New Jersey of the Middle East over here. There should be others in this picture. But for, for the sake of insanity, I can't put certain things in the picture. But that's pretty much what it was. And it was working, actually. So, actually, for some reason, Tumpty Dumpty had a good... He would listen to him. That's the weird thing about it, is not only is that dude extremely sick right now, as we can tell, is he only has access to certain people now. Like, he doesn't even have access to everyone he brought in. I think even good old Cash has lost access to him. It's really weird. It really is. And like, it shouldn't be like that at all. And I don't know exactly who's behind it. I know Susie Wiles has some weird ties to New Jersey or the Middle East. And I'm not 100% sure if it's her or somebody else. But anyway, so Charlie is in the way of this from happening. And it's not just them. The New Jersey of the Middle East is behind this too. And they see that that's never going to happen if we don't move what's in the way. So, sadly, on the 10th of September, 2025, Charlie Kirk became a terminated asset. The first known terminated asset that we've seen done in public, in plain view of the public. We've had it recorded and everything about it. And not only that, his stuff immediately started not adding up. Even if they come out and they make some certain connections, I don't know if I can ever, even if they make certain connections, there's too much there that even if they made specific connections, I don't think I could get past the idea of all of this. I would try like heck if certain things came out within the trial, but I don't think it's going to matter. Because right now, there's certain stuff you can't overcome. It doesn't matter what you say. You cannot overcome those certain things. Like the dogs being out there and not being able to find the rifle. We've heard the released chatter from that over the police radio. The dogs weren't able to find the weapon. If that weapon was fired, those dogs 99.99% of the time would find it. This is not the 0.001% of the time that they didn't find it, especially because there were multiple dogs. And with how close it was, well, first of all, the dogs would hit on the roof, but they would most likely hit on the roof Because weren't there shell casings up there? Yep. So they would hit on the roof and they would hit on the location that the rifle was stashed. We still not seen the actual rifle. There's just so much that doesn't add up. And then you go into further into it that the only facility within the U.S. that we know that makes micro explosive devices randomly exploded like a month after the whole Charlie Kirk stuff. What? And then, okay. Okay. I mean, whatever you tell it. I mean, look, it's not conspiratorial to make these connections. Can we prove things without a shadow of a doubt? No. But honestly, my entire career, it was never about proving things beyond a shadow of a doubt. I went and executed missions sometimes off of your gut, because sometimes it's just 50-50, and you don't know. But you know that the ramifications of executing that mission you'll hit a dry hole, or the payout will be that big. It's just the way life rolls, man. It's the way it works. So there's never 100% certainty. The only thing that there's 100% certainty is in signals intelligence, is that if I want to find my iPhone, I can open up my iPhone app on a different phone, and I can tell me directly where that iPhone is. It's the only thing that's certain. I know that this iPhone is right here. I don't know anything else. I don't know who's around it. I don't know anything else. That's the only certainty in any sort of intelligence. Because everything's always changing. It's also part of the reason why I don't like signals intelligence. I love it, but I don't also, because you only know so much. So it's why human is king. Well, human was first. It's the oldest, and it's the bestest. Bestest in the westest. No, it's just the most reliable overall, because you can get the most intel from it. There are certain things you can do in the other aspect where you can't do in human intelligence. Yeah, it is what it is. That's why you got to work with it all, you know. But if you only had to rely on one, it would be human intelligence, because it's undefeated. You don't need power. You don't need anything for it. You just need someone who knows what they're doing. Heck, you don't even need someone who knows what they're doing half the time. You just got to do the stuff in the right steps, you know. But yeah, September 10th, Charlie Kirk became the first publicly terminated asset. And my professional opinion, which, remember, it's an opinion and it doesn't represent anybody or any country or anything like that. He was an asset of the New Jersey of the Middle East, but we still have assets. I don't think Candace has been terminated yet. There maybe not. I don't know, because she's always had big fallouts like she did with the Daily Wire. And that appears much like a show. Much like everything that she's doing now appears like a show. Watch her episodes. She's reading verbatim off the screen all the time. It's never free form like what I'm trying to do to you. And I try to find stuff as I go. And you could say, well, this is because she's better organized. Well, first of all, I wasn't planning on doing this. So, yes, I was a little bit disorganized. I was more organized with the stuff I planned on doing earlier on. So, I'm also doing all of this on my own. People are writing it for her. All she's doing is showing up and reading. You have to remember that. So she's not even investigating it herself. I'm sure she's digging in a little bit here and there. But really think about it and really watch it and really pay attention to the word. You have to pay attention to the words coming out of her mouth. Why I train words. Words are more powerful than any sort of body language because you can't do body language without words. You can do words without body language. When you use both of them together, absolutely, it makes everything easier. But look on this screen. These are all assets. And I want to say for the New Jersey of the Middle East, most of them. But look at this facial structure, this picture I used right here. This facial structure and this picture, and you go back and look at older pictures of this lady, those facial structures aren't the same. They aren't. They're different. And I'm talking about stuff like the cheekbones and stuff. And the chin's a little bit different. It's a little more strong in like this than the other ones. And I know strong chins. I'm a connoisseur of the strong female chin. And I also know weak, feeble soy boy chins. And that's a weak, feeble soy boy chin. Like her chin right there, could give some sweet chin music to that fag's chin right there. I apologize because that was a harsh way to reference anyone who feels that way. Because comparing you to Ben Shapiro is the ultimate insult. So I apologize for that. It's a great insult for anybody to be compared to Ben Shapiro. I actually sincerely apologize for that. Because that's harsh. That's harsh. So if you did take offense to that comparison, I do greatly apologize. So I don't apologize for the soy boy term. Well, that's what it is. Well, in reality, a lot of men nowadays are soy boys because we've been, if you look at the overall, we've been deprived of testosterone. But that goes more into the petrol world that we were talking about earlier, the petrol world with pharmaceuticals and everything else. That kind of dives into that. But that's another stinking rabbit hole. Yeah. So, anyways, this is everything. This is all what it is, man. All what it is. Charlie Kirk on September 10th, 2025, became the first terminated asset caught in public image or in view of the public for everybody to see, not just for like, I mean, I'm sure stuff has been videoed before, but I'm saying for everybody to see, and then everybody saw it. Yeah, it's crazy if you think about it. Because you can still do stuff to where everybody doesn't see it. But I also do think to some extent that was a sign. Just like Humpty Dumpty's, I had my ear touched. Oh, no, you had your ear catch up. No, I cannot prove that. But I mean, like, think about it. How magical was that? I don't think ears even grow that fast if they grow back. It was magical, like very magical. So, can't prove it one way or another. It's just my opinion. I'm an opinion-based son of a bitch. All right. Anyways, that's it. I mean, I'm just rambling now. I'll see you all later. You've been watching The Modern Interrogator, and we interrogated Charlie's role in preventing what's happening right now at the Strait of Hormuz.